What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone, and this time we are here with Marianas Rest. Thank you both so much for being here today. It's great to be able to chat with you today.
Thanks, man. It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, anytime. So, the new album, Fata Morgana, is out now, and I reviewed the album, and I've told you before we started rolling that this album is just absolutely beautiful, very hard to put down. I really want to know, like, what was the thought process behind the making of this album? How did Fata Morgana sort of like see the light of day? What was like the intention?
Well, I think after our previous album this time around, the basic idea was just to kind of do the songs like we did before, but just try not to force them in any direction. We just wanted to let the music do the talking and just let it flow out of us, so to say. And well, yeah, I think that was the original idea.
Yeah, and overall, what this band is about, we try to build a strong atmosphere and kind of everything that comes after that. There's no, we kind of, if there's some general line or something like that to cross, then we will cross it. We don't kind of think it, are we making death metal or doom metal or that sort of stuff. It's all about the atmosphere. That's what we're trying to bring, put out with our music and kind of just build it slowly, layer by layer, to get there.
Conceptually, was this maybe like a direct continuation from what we heard on Ruins, the last full-length album, or was this almost kind of like a new start or a standout in the catalog a little bit?
Yeah, originally we didn't think this as a continuum to Ruins or the previous two albums, but somewhere along the way, it kind of just went into that direction. And now you can say that these all three albums, it's a trilogy of the same story where the narrator first kind of becomes has this kind of hollow feeling and starts to build up walls and then kind of loses himself in his own head and crumbles down, has a mental breakdown, and on this record he kind of picks up the pieces of his destroyed former life and tries to create something new. He takes a long journey to ponder all the mistakes he has made and figure out what went wrong.
Do you recommend do you recommend for a listener who may just be discovering you at the moment to maybe like listen to your albums as if they were like Lord of the Rings in a way? Like, should they start off with Horror, the first album, and then move on to Ruins and then move on to this album? Or could a listener approach you at any time?
I think you can start with any record. It's a loose concept, so to say. And of course, yeah, probably this is the best record. So you can start with this one, I think. But yeah, eventually, I think it's a good idea to kind of go back into history also and see what started all of this.
And you mentioned the atmosphere is very important, and that's really how I describe Fata Morgana. Like, it is a very atmospheric album. The real way I want to know is because when I listen to the guitar tones on here, when you listen to like the sound of Sacrificial or the sound of a track such as Pointless Tale or The Weight, the guitar work and the instrumentation really envelops you in that as well. What kind of like guitar, is there like a specific type of guitar effect or like an amp setting that you kind of have to like adjust to make that happen?
No, we just try to make the best of what we have. And well, on this album we had the chance to use, we had these old fuzz pedals. They were, I think the oldest was from the 70s or something. And I mean, I just like to have this as organic as possible. You know, use this old stuff we use. Well, not particularly vintage guitars, but vintage-like instruments and old pedals. Usually those kind of pedals that nobody else wants to use. And then just try to combine, yeah, and blend them together. And maybe I think the sound on the album, it's fairly clean compared to what it is when we record, it's on almost impossible to control. It's on the verge of explosion, and then we just try to somehow mix it so that it doesn't get how do you say
doesn't take too much room.
Maybe. Yeah, it doesn't take too much room, and it doesn't get messy. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it better, but
that's how I described like the sound of Marianas Rest. It almost sounds, it's very polished in its sound, but raw with its emotion. And like I feel like when you're in, because obviously you know certain vocals and the concept obviously could influence the music, but like is it almost feel when we hear like the instrumentation in these songs, do you almost kind of like look at the guitar as kind of like an emotional way to express a personal emotion as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think all the songs are they're these throw ups, you know. When we write the stuff and we don't think on what this should end up to be, or now we're gonna do this melodic slow song or nothing. We don't think like that. It's more like something that just has to come out of you.
Yeah, and then we just try to kind of, everything has to click very well together, because in this sort of music you can fuck up the whole thing with one wrong answer. You break to kind of, if there's like to virtuose kind of stuff there, some double bass line that doesn't fit, or a solo or lead that's too much, then it all kind of crumbles. So you have to be very careful, and you have everybody of us have to have exactly the same aim. So the song kind of, we all tell the same story: the drums, the bass, the guitars, and me, and of course the keyboards too. We have to be on the same page, and yeah, I think it's all about emotion. We try to tell the same thing.
Definitely. You mentioned that this album, like, it's not really like a concept album, but it is very conceptual, you know, and I think there is like a difference. Have you always like thought of this concept beforehand, or did this idea of this narration or this sort of story maybe develop over time as you were writing more music?
I think we kind of figured this thing out, that this is the thing we should do. We have to be kind of dramatic. We have to have dramaturgical arch, or so to speak. We have to have some sort of a narrator, and I think that's kind of been we've known that this is what we should do from the first album to this, but we didn't know that the story hadn't ended yet on Ruins. Somewhere along the road, we just kind of figured out that we can't start a new story yet. We have to. This is not finished, and so the story went on for this third album as well. Yeah, it's not. We are not so kind of. We don't plan these things for years to come. We just kind of try to feel what's the stuff that's coming out, and then follow it, not to force it in any direction. That's the thing we try to keep.
Do you feel that the narrator in this album is basically just for lack of better words, maybe like a character that you all are portraying, or is it just maybe another side of yourself that maybe you don't express outside of Marianas Rest?
Both. I think both. It's definitely something that's in us. It's a side of us. Well, everybody I think has this sort of black side to them, and we try to kind of deal with it through music. We try to. There's plenty of kind of things that are they come from our lives. They are real things, but put out like in metaphors and that sort of stuff. And at the same time, it's a kind of collection. It's not me, it's not Nico, it's all of us. For example, on Ruins, I think why it sounds so, it's kind of more violent, I think, than for Fata Morgana. We had a kind of a turbulent phase in our lives, a hectic phase, and that kind of you can hear it on the album. Now we this is more like pondering compared to that, and I think that's the reason why it is like that. It's because we are in that kind of phase right now.
Yeah.
We try to kind of
Musically, like this, I feel like is like a soundtrack to the despair that we're all feeling, whether it's the isolation or the anxiety or the depression. Like I feel like it's every type of negativity that we could be feeling channeled into the music. But at the same time, while I think the music can resonate with a lot of people, it's very clear what the music is emotionally saying. It's also fair to say that lyrically it could also be very much open to interpretation as well, right?
Yeah, I personally, I've always liked that sort of lyrics that leave a lot of room for people, listeners, to make their own interpretation of them. And I can't say that there's one right way to look at our songs. Every interpretation is as good as the next one, and it's very kind of satisfying to hear what other people hear in them. What they think they are about. That's the thing we are trying to do, not to kind of underline too much, to have things you can relate your own life to make your own story, to become kind of one with the songs.
Yeah, and with a title like Fata Morgana, like I feel like many people question what that means, and like is that, like, if you don't mind me asking, Fata Morgana, does that translate into something else? And I know a lot of artists hate the question, what does the record name mean? But like but I am curious because like Ruins, when I listen to that album, I instantly like look at the album artwork, I get lost in the music, and I just picture like a ruined landscape. With Fata Morgana, I feel like there's multiple visions you can get from it, both musically and lyrically. I think that like really the title makes it even more open to interpretation.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of, it's an illusion. So we kind of actually, I think the way I see it has changed since the writing session of it. The way I look at it now, it's kind of, it's this. Well, we sometimes, people tend to think that they see things clearly, although they're kind of their vision has been distorted, their thinking is distorted, and they kind of base their judgments on false analysis of situations. That's kind of the thing we refer to, but you can see it other ways too, and well, it's not the way the world goes. It's a lot of it is personal to us, but there's kind of this global perspective to it as well. You just go and see what's going on in social media, or how the kind of the divide in all the Western world, the divide between people is, I think it's never been greater, at least in modern world. Well, that's kind of part of the frustration as well. To see how fucked up this world can be.
Definitely. And because a lot of times when an artist, because obviously what you address in your music, it's been addressed before, both sonically and lyrically, through multiple genres. I mean, I've even seen rap music that even like kind of addresses like a similar subject matter about division and isolation and information and all this insanity. And obviously we're all metalheads, so that it is the first part of this answer. But like, in terms of the style of metal that you play, why do you feel that maybe this style best addresses the commentary that you're offering?
That's a difficult question. I think because it is so emotionally charged, you can kind of deal with these, I think, harder or bigger topics. I think Yeah, well, yeah, that's how I see it, because it is such a huge. It's the music is huge, so you can't have the lyrics be this small little nuance on top. It has to match the music. So yeah.
And yeah, in our case, one reason is this is the music we just know how to make, and this is who we are. So we don't really have a choice, I think. But
Well-
yeah, you could also make rap music from the same topic as well, and there are plenty of good rap music about this sort of stuff too. So
Definitely. And you know what I think is so great about your style is that I think it can really appeal to multiple audiences. Like, I don't know where on the periodic table of heavy metal subgenres we could put this like style on, because I obviously I think people who love melodic death metal will appreciate this if you like Insomnium or Swallow the Sun or Omnium Gatherum, but I think people who may appreciate a band like My Dying Bride or Catatonia or Paradise Lost could appreciate this. And I even see some black metal in here. I don't understand how like maybe somebody who listens to Behemoth or Marduk can't appreciate this as well. So I think that really this album could appeal to multiple metal audiences in a way.
yeah, and there's kind of this Cult of Luna kind of
Definitely.
post-rock drawing going on in some places. Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, we try to not think about this sort of stuff, but yeah, we all listen to very different kind of music, and everybody brings their own. This kind of our band is it's a democracy. We don't have one mastermind. We make the songs together, and that's why it's kind of a mixed pot of different kind of stuff, and we all just melt it together. And when we started, I think that one difficult thing was to we didn't have confidence enough, and we didn't really know how we should sound like. We didn't know how to meld it all together. But now we kind of are learning how to do it, and that's one of the reasons why this album turned out better than the previous two. We knew when we were making the songs, even though some song might feel on demo stage that, well, this is not really us. This is too gothic, or this is too mellow, or something like that. We just kind of knew that eventually, when we filter it through our process, it will sound like us, and it did, and that's a good thing to know in the future too.
Yeah. And kind of like going back to your songwriting process, being that you all have different musical inspirations, do you maybe find it easier to, write the songs when you're all in the company of each other, or isolation being the fuel for creativity that it is? Do you maybe find it easier to come up with ideas when maybe you're alone with your instrument, or you are alone with a pad and paper to write lyrics? Like, do you kind of tend to prefer to write alone before coming together to present it with your bandmates?
Well, the initial ideas come when we work alone, but very early on we start doing it as a group. I mean, we usually start from just having some sort of an idea. It doesn't have to be a song. It doesn't have to be even a full part. But once we get some idea what maybe the catch of the song or the hook of the song could be, then we start doing it as a group.
Or the main riff, or
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, then it kind of builds up in our laboratory. We try different things. We tear the songs down. We build them up again. We mix parts. If some part doesn't fit with some song, we take it out, but we don't throw it in trash. We kind of try to figure out if there would be some other place for this, and sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. But well, they all stay in the hard drive. Maybe we'll kind of look into there when we start making our next record.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to do so, that we start very early on with the songs, because when you do it yourself, you start doing this song and you get it all ready and you have thought of it all the way through. Then when you present it to the band and there's some parts that maybe they don't like, or the whole song is for some reason it doesn't work, and you have already fallen in love with it, so it could be very difficult to
let go.
Let go, yeah. So when you start doing it as a group very early on, you're kind of way more open to the ideas of the other guys.
Definitely.
And you can easily just throw the whole idea off if it doesn't work.
You know, but also because your songs are relatively a longer length as well, do you find it maybe like the longer you're working on something, because you mentioned like that the music does capture an emotional moment that you were feeling, or maybe something outward that was very representative of a time period, so do you find that maybe like the longer you work on something, the harder it is to kind of maintain that creative or that emotional spark in a way?
Yeah, definitely, and that is why we have different stages when we do the song. There's the when we get them to a playable state, then we just leave it. We may come back to it and then do some melodies or something, and well, they're just left, and then we return to them when we have this pre-production camp system where we go through the songs with our producer, and that's when we open them back again, and they're kind of fresh. And then after that, we may do some final fixes, but then again, we start again in the studio.
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of don't listen to them too much.
Yeah.
Also, because you kind of get lost in your own songs easily. You can't see if they're good or if there's some part that doesn't fit. If you're too kind of, you can't see the forest from the trees, I think. And well, one very important thing is to have a good producer who doesn't sugarcoat everything. If something is shit, Teemu Aalto, who has been with us from the start, he will say so. And it's kind of, he's a harsh man sometimes. It's
Good.
Yeah.
Because this music is amazing. So whatever he's criticizing you for, good. Listen to this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of you. You have to kind of you have to completely trust the man when he says. For example, there are some things that I didn't really want to put on the record because technically they are not perfect. I could do better, but he was adamant that this is the emotion is there. Don't even think about it. This is the best one. Yeah. And well, now afterwards, it's easy to say that he was right, but I tried to kind of force my own things in there, and luckily he didn't let me.
Well, I don't consider any of the songs on Fata Morgana to actually be like singles. Like I need to start off with Sacrificial and end with South of Vostok. And you know, I've always said that like the weight has to be song number 4. You know, the title track has to be song number 6. Like it almost seems like this. I almost look at this whole album as just like one big song in a way, because it really does alter your reality and kind of change your perception. And I like what you said too, because as artists, we are always the most susceptible to succumbing to madness in our own creative process. Like, you know, you've seen like those scientific experiment movies where a guy has this great new invention, but then he loses control over it and it causes some like catastrophic event. I feel like art is a very similar way too. It's art is life. When you start the creative process, it really garnishes a life of its own, and you kind of just have to be its humble guide in a way, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah, that you have to kind of, it easily takes control of you, and then usually the end product is not very good.
Yeah. Especially in the studio too. You mentioned like it's starting in the studio. It's a very confined environment. It can be very static. It can be very testy in a way. So like, have you learned in the studio to maybe just use that intensity to your advantage? I've always noticed that metal musicians have an easier time in the vocal booth or in the recording studio than any other style of musicians. If you're a country artist, you're throwing your guitar against the wall and you're walking out until tomorrow.
Well, I think we do it a bit too. Well, I personally like to leave some melody parts and especially guitar solos and stuff to the studio. I mean, you could get a million times more technical stuff if you planned them ahead and maybe even rehearsed a bit what you're gonna play. But I think the magic comes in the studio. You're in the moment and you feel the song, it's ready, and you hear it for the first time, and the first feeling you get, that is when you need to play the main melody or the solo or whatever.
Yeah.
And well, sometimes the end result is a bit, I think the playing might be a bit sloppy here and there, but I think that gives it a human factor, and that is, at least it's honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's
it's
the way I like to work.
Yeah, and I think it's important not to polish it too much. Of course, it needs to sound tight, but not like quantified and that sort of stuff. I think you can hear in some of the songs when you kind of scream for days and days. Sometimes you start to get kind of it's very physical, and the technique goes out the window, and you just have to kind of use the volume and that sort of stuff. So and your head starts to hurt, so you can really feel the it's painful sometimes, and that's I think that's an important thing to capture. At first it sounds more, how do you say, it has more depth and that sort of stuff, and that works for some parts, but for some parts you need to have the feeling that the guy is in serious agony, and you can't get that if you don't kind of push yourself to the limit.
Yeah. Well, one band, probably my favorite black metal band is a band called Life Lover, and they did an excellent job at like expressing that pain and that agony. And I don't know if this is a rumor or not, but their vocalist Kim, I think his name was, he would do all of his vocals in just one take. And like they would have all the songs written, like the album arranged in the order that it's in, and he would just do all of his vocals in one take, and you just feel the pain getting more and more and more as it moves along. That could be a good concept album or a good experiment. Yeah. The Process of Pain. That will be the name of the album.
Yeah, and I think there are some parts. Of course, there are not. The songs are not kind of. From start to finish, they're usually recorded in parts, but there are some very long parts that you can hear the similar kind of thing. I start to kind of gasp because the air is running low and that sort of stuff. So, and the sound changes, obviously. That can be a good thing.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is the most difficult question of the whole interview. Are you ready? I want you both to answer this because I want to see who's better. How do you know when a song is done?
Somebody has to tell it to you.
Yeah. If someone somewhere finds out the thing that makes a song ready, I would love to hear it. I've always said that if I ever feel like I have made a complete song or a song that I'm completely fine with, that I find perfectly done, that's the last song I'll ever make.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better.
They are not finished ever. I think after you put it on the album, you record them, they still continue living, and that's kind of how the different versions that you play on gigs come to life. They evolve, and I think when we play them now compared to how we are going to play them in 5 years, probably they are quite a bit different. I think so they live on. That's just one phase of the song that's on the album, but of course sometimes you have to eventually let go of them and feel fine with them. Sometimes you kind of just know it. Maybe you have goosebumps hearing some version of the song or that sort of stuff. Your skin begins to crawl. Those are good signs. I think.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't get them. You just have to kind of trust the producer that this is pretty okay.
If somebody doesn't get goosebumps listening to this album, then I'm just going to think they're a robot.
Cheers.
And you brought up a good point too, because with every passing listen, like if I listen to it, like I've listened to it on my computer speakers, I've listened to it through my AirPods, I've showed it to friends on their computer and so on. It is one of those albums where like you'll discover something new, and like even if you listen to it in a different setting or listen to it in a different mood, like you just discover something new on it.
Uh, that's it's. I think that's one of the nicest things you can say to us.
Oh, thank you.
That's what we try to kind of do, and that's what we hope that the songs will work this way.
Yeah.
So thanks, man.
The challenge to all of your fans: try to find every new thing you could potentially discover on that. They're infinite.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you both so much for your time today. Just obviously, thanks to the certain virus that I'm not naming on my outlet. Obviously, shows aren't happening at the moment, but when shows do happen again, and things do pick up, knocking on all the wood I have that it's soon. Can you please bring Marianas Rest to the state one day, please?
Well, that's the big dream.
Yeah.
This was the kind of thing we were aiming at before, and now that we are here, hopefully we can stay kind of like on this level, so to say. And the next thing is to get to tour the States. That's the next dream, next goal, and hopefully we'll see you along the way. Then we are going to do it.
Yeah. If it's up to us, we will turn every stone to make it happen.
For American metalheads, if your band is from Europe, everybody's interested. Whether it sounds like Cannibal Corpse or it sounds like Creed, people are excited to see a European metal band. So you'll make it here. Just we'll love you here. And is there just anything else that you would like to promote in terms of like merch and like maybe live stream performances, if you're doing any of that, or anything else you'd like to plug?
Well, we are going to do, well, it's not the direct live stream, but it's a live recording that we are going to put out in the near future. So you are going to get to see us play the new songs live. Yeah.
More
It's
new
not a
things
stream,
to discover.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll like it.
Yeah.
We haven't heard it yet, but
We're excited. But thank you guys so much for your time today. Everybody, we are here with Marianas Rest. Be sure to check out Fata Morgana, out now on Napalm Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.